Behold, my stuff.
All right, so this is the body that we're going to be using for our custom Marvel Legends scale John McClane. This is a really simple mod. What this is an Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom figure. We popped off the feet and repainted up some Gorr the God Butcher feet. So we've thrown those. If you can see the thing on the bottom here, get the Marvel copyright. So we've thrown those on, glued them in, because they didn't pop in quite as good on the Hasbro Indie figures. And then this shirt is actually a Casey Jones shirt that we just sort of cut up and glued on and sort of made. You kind of finagle it. But you can use a cloth one if you really want. There is a Casey Jones, April O'Neil 2-pack that comes with a tank top. If you get that one and sacrifice the Casey Jones figure to get that together, you can just cut that one shorter and put that right on. It'll work great. I wasn't buying a whole new Casey Jones figure to do it. I'm not doing the diorama with Casey Jones anymore, so I sacrificed the shirt just to make this little tank top. Works great. Love the way it looks. Could remove it if I wanted to do shirtless John McClane. The pants should be gray, but I did love that sort of Die Hard with a Vengeance color that they had as a base. So I painted it with some gray and some black and some dirt, and I desaturated it a little bit. So now it sort of has like a grayish, brownish tone depending on which direction he's pointing and looking at. And I kind of just like that look better, and I think I'm going to keep that for now. I may revisit the gray later, but this is going to be a little less of a fully accurate John McClane and more of a spirit of John McClane, if you will. So the body was super easy to do. I love the size of the arms on the Indiana Jones figures. The joints are very similar to the Marvel Legends. The body is not overly muscular. It's just a very real person. Like, it's still a fairly in-shape human, but nowhere near a superhero level, which is what I wanted for my John McClane. The Hans Gruber that I'm going to put him with is just a Tony Stark with a new painted beard. I'm really not going above and beyond for my Hans. Hans! It's, the suit's supposed to be black. I may paint the suit black. I may not. I honestly don't care. It's really just about the McClane, and I just want someone to stand opposite him. So I painted the tie blue, and I gave him an updated beard. John Phillips of London.
John Phillips, London. I have two myself.
So the real trick is, if you're going to do a John McClane, you need a head. And unfortunately, I had to get a custom one. There's just no decent John McClane figure in this scale that works. I've seen people do them with the Sin City ones and things like that, and they're fine, but this little custom guy is about $12, and it comes flesh-toned already, which is great. And my heat is turning on because it's really, really cold here. This is a great little Bruce Willis look. It's got that face with that smirk. It's just great. But as you can see, tonally, it doesn't match. So we're going to have to paint up Bruce's tones a little bit here. So we matte clear coated this so that it has a primer so that it's paintable, but I wanted to preserve that initial tone. We're going to be using this. This is what we predominantly used for the feet. We're going to accent and mix in some of this. We're going to thin the paint with this reducer. I like using the airbrush thinner and the reducers and things like that because they dry quicker than if I use distilled water. It's a trick that I found on YouTube, and I've really enjoyed it. It allows me to paint layers quicker and use a heat gun and really move through the painting. The hair, we're going to do a very dark brown base. We're going to highlight it with little bits of this mixed with this to sort of create a brown that I like. And then we're going to black wash it with our trusty shoe polish. Where is that? Kiwi shoe polish, just to give the hair that sort of grummy look. I may actually go raw umber instead of burnt umber for the hair. There is a slight difference in the two. So I haven't quite decided. Raw umber with the black doesn't quite have any life to it. It's very desaturated, and I don't know that that's what I want for the hair. But that's what we're going to try to do today. So we're going to paint this head up. We're going to thin out some of this just a little bit to make it coat, and we're going to see how we can do that. So let's go ahead and see what we can do with John. All right, so before we get started on this, we're going to use this too. This little neck light goes a long way. So we put some thinner into the cup, nothing major. And we're going to take some of this. I'm going to take some of this paint. Whoop, and I'm just going to kind of, let me shake it up first. And this is a Citadel Cadian flesh tone. It's a nice sort of tan, darker flesh tone. I like it because you can sort of do a number of different races with it. You know, you can do basic Caucasian, but you can also, with a little bit of different accent color, you can pull off Latin American and just some different types of races. You can do really pale if you really accent with like the unbleached titanium, and you can get a really nice, you know, Nordic look. So I just think it's a really nice neutral tone. It's got enough saturation that you can mute it down or play it up if you want to tan somebody and do like George Hamilton or something like that. And I try to make it super runny, but that's about the consistency that I want to start with. And let's just see what that looks like. And again, the reason I'm thinning it out is I want the color to basically sit, I should probably glove up for this, but in the recesses of the face. So I want the tones there. I don't want any clumping or anything, but I don't want it to just sit on top. I want it to sort of gather in pools and places where shadows are relevant. So it'll be a light coat to start. Is that on camera? It is. Sorry, trying this for the first time. And then get behind the head. Wash behind your ears. Did I tell you to eat up? Wash behind your ears. Do your homework. No, I respected your privacy, and I taught you self-reliance. Sorry, this is kind of all over the place. I'll figure it out. We'll get there. All right, so. And you'll notice that I am doing downstrokes right now. I'm not switching to the upstrokes yet. I don't know if that matters or not, but it's a method that I kind of use and I kind of like. So, grab my... The reason is I want to kind of brush all the excess off of it. All right, so after the heat gun, we're gonna, let me get my light here. All right, there we go. So you can see already it's starting to get some value in highlight. Now we're gonna do some upstrokes. Get some more paint on my brush here. I don't need it to be super, super wet. Oh no! Face overboard. Didn't think about that. All right, let's try that again, yes? So now I'm doing my ups. All the way up to the top of the hair, in the ears. Make sure there's no excess that is going to pool. Let's go get the... Let's do a little bit of that. You don't want to get your thing too hot because you don't know what kind of resin it's printed in or cast in or anything like that. Now, this one did have dots on the chin, which tells me that it was 3D printed, and they tend to melt at a low melting point, so I'm not wild about that getting super hot. But that's a pretty good flesh tone. So if we go over here and sort of take him over, let's bring this up. That's getting there. Now remember, we got to make his face dirty, we got to make it bloody, we got all this crap. So now that I'm kind of happy with that base tone, now I got to start thinking about all the other details. So the next step is we got to lighten him up. We definitely need to do some lighter basic highlights. So I need another brush. Different brush. No, not that brush. Yes, this brush will be okay. Definitely not that brush. Definitely not that brush. Yeah. All right, now the next thing I need to do is now we need to whip in some of this titanium into the base color we already did. And I'm not using a small amount. I do like to mix with brushes. I think that's easier. So I'm mixing that in now to lighten this up. And I'm looking to really lighten it up because I just want it to be a little less saturated. But because it's an off-white, it creates a much sort of, it doesn't completely desaturate it. So because there's still some yellow in there, in that white, using stark white would not work. I've tried that. It just comes out like butt. But you can kind of see the color in there. That's not too bad. So that's significantly lighter than what we're dealing with. But we got to be very sparing with this. And I'm very nervous about overdoing it, but it's not, again, it's not the end of the world if it gets overdone. So let me get rid of that. Let me take my new brush. Get some paint on it. All right, now this is the part where I get really paranoid. So let me test a little bit on the back of the head here, which I know is getting covered in another Yeah, in another color. Okay, this will work. So where are we going to do it? Well, the thing with where we do it is bridge of the nose, across the forehead, cheeks, chin, and that's kind of where maybe the edges of the ears, and that's where I'm going to want the paint. Now I take all the rest of the paint off the brush, and now I just kind of work it in. Now you could dry brush in this instance, and it would probably accomplish a lot of the same tasks. And now I'm going to take what very little there is and move it around a little bit. And that's kind of the goal here, is just move the paint, because now there's almost no layer to it. Just kind of move it around. And now, give it a quick. So you can kind of see, it's a little lighter now, but this will look pretty good. So let's just throw him on the head really quick. So now that he's head on, this is a better starting tone. Might still be a little too pale. I might need to go back in with some of the Citadel and just do some highlights. I'm going to want to do some 5 o'clock shadow, I think, but I think we're good. Looks like there's some grime on the upper head here. Let me get rid of that. I think we're good to start going in and looking at doing some details. So let's start with, we'll take our cup of paint and leave that over there. Let's zoom out. So far, John's looking all right. Let's take a look at the real thing is just like that contrast. I know it looks like it's a little lighter than it should be, but again, the body looked like that before I grunged it up. You also want to make sure you have your reference photos. So please make sure you know what kind of John McClane you're painting. We're not gonna, yeah, I think, you know what? We are gonna do that. We're gonna mix up a thin batch and you might be like, "Al, why are you using the same brush for everything?" Because I can clean it in between and it's fine. And now there's no paint left on that brush, so I'm fine to keep using the same brush over and over again, you know. I'm not overly paranoid about it. All right, step 2 is hair. So first I'm gonna make a thin batch of paint for the hair, and I'm gonna try to get all the paint off the bottom. I should have put the thinner in first, and I didn't, and I'm stupid, but that's okay. It's a base coat, so I am gonna use the raw umber base coat, because I'm gonna dry brush burnt umber and a mixed burnt sienna. Maybe I'll do a little bit of raw sienna and skip the burnt entirely, take the red out of the equation. Haven't decided yet. We're gonna do some hair. So let's go zoom in again. I'm gonna start with the back and knock my paint over because I'm fucking stupid. That's too thin. We're gonna need more. Well, let's, so that's a little weird. That's the problem with too much liquid. I thinned it too much, so let me just dry this out a little bit. And I think I am gonna blot out the excess. Just taking a paper towel and blotting out the excess right now because I'm not wild about the first coat. So that's why. It's too thin. I made it too thin. I want to thicken it up a little bit. But the other option is, it is already mixed. I do have layers. I may just need to build it up, which is super annoying. But if that's what we got to do, then that's what we got to do. So if we got to do layers, we got to do layers, and we'll just do freaking layers, and it is what it is. I'm lazy. I don't want to do layers. I just want it to be done, but you do what you got to do. So because I liked the thinner paint color for the front of the hair, I'm not going to try to touch that hairline again. I'm just going to paint over these spots in the back, and we're just going to slowly build up the color for John Boy. We could do the eyebrows, though. I'm going to have to get my lights on here. Give me a second. All right. Hair just looks very patchy right now, but that's what happens with layers. Every time I talk about layers, I'm always reminded of Hobbit special features when Billy Connolly was talking to Richard Taylor, and he says, "Oh, it's heavy. And he said that Richard Taylor says, it's actually a lot of light layers. He goes, aye, that's how heavy things happen. It's not the layers, it's the amount. So just going in and trying to dry up the current splotchiness. And seeing if we can get a little bit more consistency, I guess. And now we'll do another layer over the hairline. And we'll try to bring it in over the ear. Get that moving a little bit. This side as well. I think I'm off camera now, but I'll just be over generous on the hair around the edges, and then if I have to go back in with skin tone to deal with that, I can do that. We can definitely touch that up later. All right, we're starting to get there. So we're starting to get there with the hair. All right, let's go in and do something a little different now. All right, let's see if we can because he didn't have like super sideburns in the movie, but so I'm having trouble with the eyebrows. We're gonna have to go dry brush with the eyebrows, which is irritating, but it also is what it is. The hair is actually coloring in kind of nice. We are going to do some different colored highlights, so to sort of sharpen this up a little bit. So we've got John with some hair now, not wild about the back of the head. It's like a big bald spot on the back of his head, so I'm just going to cover that with paint really quick. Get that spot nice and colored. And where it is excessive, a lot away. And now where's my trusty dry this crap out. All right. So actually doing the wash over the flesh tone sort of simulated the idea of depth and highlight unintentionally. With gray primer, that would have looked ugly, but because it was skin tone, I didn't expect it to actually look that good, so that's interesting. We're going to cover some of that anyway, so now it's time to create a highlight color. So we know that he's not blonde, but he has lighter hair. So let's go in, and I think we're going to use a little bit of this, and now I think we're going to do a little bit of the burn. We're going to create just a wee... I'm going to do just a little bit of this color. Be my best bet, color-wise, to get a lighter brown, just so that the hair has some more dimension. Yeah, that's a lot closer to what I want. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot closer to what I'm looking for here. Okay, that is definitely more in alignment with what I want. All right, now in order to do this, I'm going to get as much of it off as possible and knock over John McClane. And now I'm just going to and so what we're getting is just a little bit of lightening, particularly in spots where paint was too dark and clumpy. And so now we end up with a lighter John McClane before we end up with a black wash. So, got it on the ear. And I got a little on the back of the head too, but that's okay. All right, so we're getting there. But it now occurs to me that I got to do the eyebrows, and I don't think there's going to be an effective way for me to do this on camera, so I'm going to take a quick break and do the eyebrows and then come back.
Glass? Who gives a shit about glass?
All right, so off camera, I did a couple little things. The hair dried. And the hair dried, and it came out really nice. I took the mix that we did for the skin, and I mixed in just a touch of red, and I made a red wash, and I just went over the bottom lip a little bit. Bruce Willis has green eyes, so I just went in, and I just used a lot of toothpicks and stuff to do the eyes as best I can. We're going to cover that up with blood for the most part. Got to do it. So this is now, I mean, you could call this done. This looks pretty good, but we got to mess up his face. So next thing on my agenda is I need a chip brush. Something that's a little bit more... And we're going to go in and get some red. All right, and we are going to go in and properly... Why don't we zoom for this? Now, John McClane has... Whoops, I got blood on my fingers. John has a cut on his eye. And so we're going to give him that John McClane eye cut. He's also got a little bit of a lazy eye over here, and I'm kind of worried about that. So I think I want to create a little bit of blood around that eye. Catch him a little bit in the nose. A little bit of blood in the hair. And now since we've gone heavy with it, I'm going to scratch some of it off. I got a little file here. And so what I don't want scrape off. I'll pull it up a little bit. And the reason being is it leaves residue behind. So even after I scrape it off, it gives a bit of a residue, which leaves a sort of scratch mark consistency. Doing is we're just going to dab the red gloss in some of those areas where the blood was. Our handy dandy. That matte clear coat really sealed the skin tones in and made it fantastic. Now, the last thing we're going to do is, as I said, we are going to black wash this a little bit. So I got to get him black washed. So the next step is, I debated whether or not I wanted to do the tattoo. He's got a skull with a top hat. That was sort of like a Special Forces-esque type thing. At this time, I'm not going to do that, because I don't even know how that would look. So we're going to take a brush dipped in the kiwi black wash, and we're just going to hit all the areas. I'm actually going to directly put it on the hair because I can. And so all the highlights I did and everything are already sealed in. And we're just trying to get some darkness to seep into the hair. So I leave that for a minute or two, and then you're just going to brush it off with a bit of a wet rag. It will stay in the deep recesses. It just adds a little bit more depth. Now, we gotta make his face dirty. Which is okay. Now, when you get the dirt, I like to use my nail and sort of drive it in. Because, again, it scrapes. And then you end up with dirt in places where it might have been. Too much went under the lip. That's not where I want that. All right, and now we got ourselves a John McClane. So let us take Hans at Nakatomi Tower and set this up and see how our custom truly came out. Yeah? All right, so we've got Hans. And we've got John Nakatomi Tower, or Nakatomi Plaza, or whatever the hell you want to call it. I think it's Nakatomi Tower, and the plaza is where the tower was. So we've got our custom John McClane, which was the whole point of this. Hans was just a fun little throw-in for sake of argument. But we've got a very nice Bruce Willis likeness. We went in and did some gloss in the hair because he's sweaty. Some of that sweat is onto the forehead and whatnot. He's dirty. He matches. We did good with the skin tones. I may get that green and red out of there. I said it wasn't really going to matter, but now it kind of looks like it matters, so I don't know if I love that. But we got the Gorr the God Butcher feet. We're keeping the tan, mostly tan pants. And the Indiana Jones body works great. The shirt from Casey Jones works great. Now we just need to put a gun in his hand, and we're going to be in good shape. So that is how you do custom Die Hard, and Marvel Legends and Indiana Jones figures work just fine. So, yeah, if you can't build it, buy it. If you can't buy it, build it. But sometimes, man, you got to do both.